This looks like some sort of metallic. There's a silver on top. There's orange, then there's silver, and then it looks like there's gold. And then underneath the gold, you would find the primer, which would be a white. This is the bottom layer here, and it's got some color on top of it, but I can't tell if that's something that was added later or not, but it is gold. And maybe I can clean to the next layer up, which is also gold. What they probably did was come in and paint it all white and then put the orange on top. Is the original. There's a layer here, which is a gold on top of the original. There's a layer here, which is the silver, a silver on top of that gold, white, and then orange. Yep.
Of all the carousel horses ever carved, the most famous is the magnificent American Beauty Rose horse. It has graced book covers, calendars, and is considered by experts to be the most beautiful and intricate carousel horse ever created. It's often called the $1 Million Horse.
And the first question everybody will have if this carousel goes back in action is this the actual horse? And people will find it hard to believe.
Someone just took a couple of nails and nailed it back on, and that would have just been on the animal like this. And that's really common. And you can see this horse is in pretty bad shape. It's got a lot of dry rot happening around the tail area. There's a lot of, got to cut all this out and get in there and re-epoxy everything. So this is common. Actually, there's a lot more of it if you really look close. Here's another horse that was repaired on the ride. Someone just threw a big bolt through the leg right here. So they just bolted it back together again, maybe not put any glue in there, we don't know. And here's another nail hole right here. So these are things that we have to look for. Once the animal's stripped down, we have to really look hard and long for nails. This one, we'll glue that little piece back on, but then we'll build it back up with an epoxy, a fairing epoxy, and so that it'll come back. Tails are usually separate. You can see why they have a crack here like this. That tail just goes right in there like with a big dowel. And that's where this is. This one, you can see all the nail holes trying to hold it in. The tail fell out. We have it over in another area. This is more normal, what we're used to. And then there's big holes here from where the big screws were put into it, and it popped back out. So this is what we see all the time. All the metal gets removed. All this gets cleaned up. It gets epoxied together. And then any place where it's worn, you can see here, this looks like a reproduction piece or a replacement piece of wood. See how you can see the grain? So I can almost guarantee you once we get in here, we're going to find that was an added piece of like fur or just a 2x4 or whatever they had. So we'll have to cut that off and put a new piece of basswood on there and then carve it to match. The nice thing about this, it wasn't used much. It was at the county fair. They didn't use it every day. It was basically 1 month out of the year. So it didn't get the hard wear and tear like something like at a regular amusement park or a city park that was open all day, every day.
This is one that has, a really nice design on it that was put there originally, and you can see that it was very quickly painted. And that's the kind of thing that we want to document. We want to document the color and get a catalog of designs that were original so that Pam and Lisa can work from those when they do the repainting.
We're picking the 6 that we're going to take, the first 6 to be done with the least amount of things to fix up. So we're just kind of looking through and picking which 3 we're each taking.
Okay, these are the 6 best horses.
Yeah, they're the ones that are going to need the least amount on your part to get it ready to give to us.
All right, and you're all done with the color documentation?
Done.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll be, whenever we get these, we'll be to start in on these. Get them done fast so that Dan can have them back and get ready, room for the next, and just start this flow of animals coming through.
Yeah. If it was just this, I'd live with it.
Right.
The decision is made which horses will be sent up to Lisa's studio.
This one's going to take some work on my part,
Okay.
not on your part.
Okay.
Somebody has touched this up with a spray can of black, and you can feel it on here.
If we were starting this whole carousel from this, then it would all look alike when we're done. But because much of this is 20 years old, we need to get that to the stage where all the rest of them are going to be, so that the whole thing looks alike. Yeah. So, I mean, we're working with old restorations right now on top of new restoration.
The wooden sweeps are original from 1906 and still in fine shape.
You're just going to move them out and bring them down. So that's a lot easier than those cranks you saw us, Todd, you know, dancing up there with cutting, coming through the little hole right there. So it'll be simpler. Everything will be out of the way.
Go ahead, you can take that out of it.
Removing the big sweeps is easier than removing the crank bars.
Here. Just unhook that bottom part.
Come to this side of the...
You gotta help them guys out there.
But until a few of them come down, it's like pulling a felled tree out of a thick forest.
All right, now just lift, unhook, now down. All right, you guys do your thing. Just get the sweep out of there. I'll hold the rod. It's much lighter than the sweep. Hold it. There you go. All right, lift up over that rod there, Ralph. Just grab that ladder for him, Brian. Make sure. No, this ladder here when he's coming down. All right.
Gradually, the sweeps are taken down, numbered, and stacked, waiting for repair and paint.
Coming down.
Now the old bearings and gears are lifted off the center pole. Some are not willing to go, but Todd doesn't take no for an answer.
You got one of them pry bars, just one of the short ones. Keep going. All right. That's good.
Brian has repaired and painted the sweeps in preparation for the return of the reworked and replaced machinery from Todd's shop in Ohio.
The
materials that we found that look different on the carousel than everything else are these odd loops with these shackles. They normally look like this, which are handmade iron with loops. And we had to figure out why these were here. And we thought maybe that some of these guy rods had broken off. They made a new loop at the end, and that they had to make up that length with a shackle. We're replacing 2/3 of them. There are 3 per sweep. We talked about how the threads have been cut off. That's the other reason for replacing them, because without those threads, we don't have adjustability. And so the new ones are going to have almost 7 inches of thread to allow us to tune the carousel properly.
San Francisco has always been full of surprises. Why shouldn't there be a blacksmith shop in the middle of town?
C, we take out of the equation.
It's no longer.
We're just talking about A and B.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
So
It's just A.
Figured out then.
Okay.
A and B.
So the B type,
Yeah.
the goal is 16 inches from here to the end. On A, 19 inches from here to the end.
Okay. Now I know. I got it all marked down.
There's no way for these parts to be made other than by hand blacksmithing. Tony has done this kind of thing a few times. Just as it was done at the Loof factory in 1906.
So that's what we're going to have to do with all of them eventually. This is my clubhouse. I like coming here. I'm president of nothing. I come in here for lunch and whatever. And I was rushed today and yesterday because I got to get it done.
Todd has returned with the restored machinery.
The entire carousel sits on that top piece. The entire weight of the machine, the entire machine weighs on that piece. So that bearing has to support the entire machine. These parts are the whole reason we did this project. These 2 parts, these 2 bearings had completely wore out. Since this is probably the last time this carousel is going to be a part like this, at least for the next 40 years, it made sense to just do it all then. Put in the time, spend the money, and do it right the first time. Now that that's up there, we can hang the guy rods off of it, and we can put the sweeps up, and we can lift the deck up off of these cross beams. And then the carousel will be alive again. It feels so dead right now.
What makes the horses go up and down?
The opening day is fast approaching and work moves along smoothly, but they can't afford any delays.
Now all we got to do is put the top bearing on and we'll be ready for sweeps.
The tension is building. To paraphrase a saying, what comes down must go back up. And no one can figure out why that is a lot harder. The The sweeps are put back in exactly the same position according to Brian's numbering system.
It looks like about a quarter of a carousel.
Wait a minute. Swing down a little. There you go. Okay.
Across the bay, Lisa is unhurried. There is no time challenge for restoring the magnificent Supreme. The collector who now owns it simply wants it to be restored perfectly.
This is actually a really nice part of the work. Just because it's free, you just can kind of create something.
Developing the color palette is a time-consuming job. And when you consider that these horses are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars when restored, they're very careful to get it right.
So even though there's gold there, it has some color on top of it. If you wanted to match the gold for some reason, like you were making a repair on a piece or a frame, you could actually find the gold. And the changes in the gold depends on what it's alloyed with and the percentage. So you can see this one is a red gold. It has gold and copper. This is really beautiful Japanese colored silver leaf. So instead of doing like those color glazes that I was doing before, you could actually get this leaf and put it on. It's really beautiful. It's very expensive too. I think the most challenging part of this work, the leafing, because you have to understand about the sizing and when it's ready, and how to apply the leaf, and just to have the patience to do it.
The ornate rounding boards and other pieces are cataloged and stacked, standing ready when their time comes. Marcus Ilians would be pleased to see his masterpiece in such talented and responsible hands. The crank rods have to be put back into their brackets and fitted into a new gear drive. These are iron rods which are geared at the inner end. That gear fits into a ring gear, which turns with the carousel, causing the rods to turn. The poles that suspended the deck from the sweeps are put in place.
Is the outside row.
11.
Well, I didn't want to box our chariots in, but I guess we can come in around if we have to.
Yeah, 6A19.
6A19, Thomas.
The deck is once again hanging by the rods, and the clock is ticking.
I'm not trying to hold the weight and have this right here. There. See how I'm doing? Grab a full gear. We don't want to lay the horse on its legs. Sorry.
1998, 97. So, I mean, then somewhere, there's a new term I learned called park paint, which is when things get worn off, they just throw some paint on it.
Pick up. Up. Where's the doggies? Bring the doggies up. Yeah. Seems like the deck broke right here.
A disaster. Jan is understandably nervous.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about maybe going up there, putting our rigging back on, putting our hook back here, and ratcheting and pulling it all back up again.
Yeah.
All those guys, the Chariot, on one little spot. I mean, that's 1,000 pounds right there. And it all just went up there at the same time. Usually the deck gives. You know, the edge of the deck will...
It's just, well, it's old, but I mean, you can see where it had been cracked. Where there had been a crack in it already. So, where do you want to go? You want a new rod or what?
Well, we're going to have to get a new rod.
When one goes, it means they all have to be replaced. And they only have a week to do it.
I mean, we got to replace them all.
See, he got 1, 2, now I got 3. Tony's bringing 4.
With the clock ticking, Todd manages to build brand new rods to support the carousel deck.
We're going to bend our hook around this, and it'll then hook around that and be the right size. If it was too small, like this end, for instance, you know, see that it would only hit on 2 corners because our bend wouldn't be right. You know. The mark is telling me where I'm putting my things so that they're all consistent. So if you come in here really quick and look right in there, see that mark, that little line across there that I'm putting on it? Yeah. Right there. I'm putting that on with the cold chisel, and then that's what's hitting this. So I'm spinning around here. So I'm touching my mark, and then we're pulling it around. And I'm stopping at a fixed point.
They are returned to the site, and the deck is once again suspended. Only a whole lot safer. The first of several inspections takes place. The famous old carousel once again passes with flying colors.
This is the new drive motor and gearbox right here. This is a system that would have been in place at the time it was built. And so we got the motor, the gearbox, the drive shaft, and the bull gear up there at the top. And so the mounts that you see very close to that are the mounts that are going to be holding the gear that's laying here on the floor. Long story short, goes back to the way it originally was. You know, so that's to be very, very compatible to the original factory stuff. Well, what we did was hung the lower facades, the lower mirror panels, because we needed to hang that so we could set the center surround room up, which is non-original. This is the last decorative piece.
The opening day is fast approaching, and work moves along smoothly. All amusement park rides work extremely hard, operating hundreds of times a day. At the turn of the last century, beauty and quality were what attracted customers, and great machines like the Supreme were commercial enterprises. A few of the hand-carved Ilions and Louvre carousels have been saved and restored in collections. And fortunately for all of us, a small handful continue doing what they were meant to do, delighting children and adults every day. Their appeal to the public has never stopped, and no molded fiberglass or pressed aluminum horses have ever held a candle to the expressive, magnificent creatures that beckon us to join them.
Here's just a taste of what you'll experience on Ultimate Restorations.
60 years since it was run, and you'll either see it run or blow up.
As far as we know, with all the research that we've done, this is the only one that has survived today.
I'm pushing for all I'm worth, guys.
Holy Toledo.
To all who believe the past holds important secrets to be shared.
Is this the actual horse? People will find it hard to believe.
Lessons to be learned.
There's orange, then there's silver, and then it looks like there's gold.